Hello, welcome to the Nigerian Investors Podcast, the unofficial podcast that tracks and reports on the activities of the Nigerian boss. My name is Moody, and with my colleague Aye, we will be hosting this podcast. TNI Podcast is dedicated to stimulating a renewed enthusiasm among the general population with regard to the activities of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Ultimately, the goal of TNI is to see that many Nigerians from all walks of life, both at home and in the diasporas, become active participants on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Before we go further, we would like to place on record TNI podcast is solely for educational purposes and not a replacement for professional financial advice. Let's begin. Hello, welcome back to the Nigerian Investors Podcast, TNI for short, your favorite podcast that deals with investment, news, and activities in Nigeria, with special focus on the stock market in Nigeria. Today, I have Aye with me.
Good day, listeners. Once again, it's nice to be here. I think we have a very, very interesting episode today. We always have an interesting episode, honestly, because Nigerian stock market is just a wonderful place to make money. Yeah.
Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we'll be talking about the various sectors in the Nigerian stock market. Last week, we spoke on the NCA plan and how investors can use it to basically approach the market from different perspectives. Today, we'll be talking about the different sectors so that investors can sort of gauge how these different stocks tend to fit into these different categorizations, these different sectors in the market.
Okay, that sounds good to me. The Nigerian Stock Exchange, known as the Nigerian Exchange Group (NGX), following its demutualization, is the main platform for trading shares and other financial securities in Nigeria. It plays a significant role in the Nigerian economy, providing companies with access to capital while offering investors opportunity to participate in the country's economic growth. The NGS is divided into several sectors, each representing a unique part of the Nigerian economy. These sectors categorize listed companies based on their core business activities, helping investors diversify their portfolios and gain targeted exposure to various parts of the market. In this episode, we will discuss the different sectors on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, including the banking sector, the consumer goods, industrial goods, oil and gas, healthcare, and information and communications technology, otherwise known as the ICT sector. Aye is going to start with the banking sector. Aye, over to you.
All right. So, the banking sector is one of the core categorization of stocks on the market, right? And interesting enough, it's the most active of all the sectors on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I know we've already hinted at this on our last episode. We said the Fugas stocks, not just the Fugas anyway. Mostly the bank stocks are some of the most traded stocks on the market. You are bound to see at least one of the banks change value on the market on the trading day. The sector is vital to the overall performance of the Nigerian stock market due to its influence on economic growth and its facilitation of capital flows, right? So, what does that mean? Essentially, we're talking about the fact that banks they provide capital to businesses in the Nigerian economy. That's their core business. They provide loans and advances to customers and companies in the market. And like we said, they are some of the most heavily traded on the market. They are extremely liquid. At least most banks are very, very liquid. Interesting enough, they also tend to have some of the highest dividend yields on the market. I think they should be right. At least the Fugas Bank is Zenith Bank, Access Bank, tend to have very, very high dividend yields in the market. And they tend to be the most favored stocks for investors, both local and international investors. How very liquid they are. They tend to have billions of units outstanding, so they tend to change hands a lot in the market. And even though you see some fractional changes in prices. I mean, the highest the stock can change in value in the market is 10% up or 10% down. But you tend to see stocks, bank stocks go up maybe 1%, 2%, 0.5%. But then they also tend to go 5, 7, or even 10% up or down on the market. They tend to be very, very volatile. And they are generally influenced by interest rates, inflation, government policies, and the overall health of the economy. I mean, right now we are seeing banks basically try to recapitalize because of the CBN directive, and that did lead to an initial negative apathy towards the bank stocks. I think bank stocks they dropped over time, but I think they've started picking up. I think some banks, especially UB, has done very well year to date. I think has done very well on the market, right? So they tend to mirror the overall economy because of how important they are to the economy and just how liquid they are, right? So investors who want to gain from capital appreciation and dividends, they can always look to the banks, right? They are very good source for capital appreciation and dividend yield, right? They tend to capture that, especially the dividend side of things, right? If you're an income investor who also wants to get some growth on the market, the bank stocks are a very good go-to place for you. However, because of their exposure to the world economy, there's the risk of you know regulatory changes, credit risk, and the likes that can affect the overall banking um, index, the overall banking sector index. And we've already mentioned this, right? So right now, I think some banks have experienced that decline because of the recapitalization exercise, but they are slowly picking up. So yeah, that's it about the banking sector.
The consumer goods sector is another sector we want to look at. It is an important area on the NGS, comprising companies that produce and distribute products for everyday consumer use, such as food, beverages, and household items. This sector include notable companies like Nestle Nigeria, Unilever Nigeria, Nigerian breweries, and Flour Mills of Nigeria. Demand for products in the consumer goods sector tends to be relatively stable, making it attractive to investors seeking consistent returns. This sector's performance is closely tied to the purchasing power of consumers, which can be affected by factors such as inflation, income levels, and economic stability. During economic downturns, consumer spending may decrease, affecting the revenues of companies in this sector. However, given Nigerians' large and growing population, I think this consumer goods sector holds long-term growth potential. And I believes in this as well because he's heavily invested in this sector too. This sector can also provide stability to an investor's portfolio, though exposure to the currency fluctuations, inflation, and rising production costs persist. And that is one of the reasons why I'm not really exposed to this sector. I've said this several times before. Can you talk on the next sector, the industrial goods sector? Thank you.
Should go and invest in Unilever, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very much invested in that company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we look at the industrial goods sector, we're mostly looking at companies that are into manufacturing and construction of physical products. And most of the companies on the market that are listed and categorized in this sector are mostly into building. So we have cement companies, we have paint companies, right, and we have construction equipment companies. So some of the most prominent companies you're going to see in this particular sector are companies like Dangote Cement, I think being the largest cement company currently in Nigeria, one of the largest, most capitalized companies even on the stock market. And then we have Cement, and then we have Lafarge Africa. You also see companies like Chemical and Allied Products and Berger Paint. Those are the kind of companies you definitely would see in this sector. and they are highly sensitive to infrastructural development and government policies. What do we mean by that? Because these sectors are mostly providing the raw materials required for infrastructural projects, tend to reflect that growth investment. When we see a lot of investment, and this has been the case for a lot of time, there are a lot of investment in infrastructural projects going on in Nigeria, and this tends to positively affect this sector because they are the ones providing the raw materials that are required for the construction of these infrastructure projects. When we look at Nigeria's economy with increased population, urbanization, and the growing demand for construction materials and the building of properties and what have you, to sort of keep up with all of that, it tends to positively affect this sector a lot. I think some of the stocks in this sector have been some of the best performing year to date. I think Dangote Cement and Boa Cement have shown remarkable growth, and of course Lafarge, especially with the recent um, um, acquisition by Chinese company.
Rumor.
It's not a rumor anymore. I think the information is out there. It's just moving forward, how a lot of details have not yet been brought out. Right, they are going to acquire minority shareholders and probably delist on the market. So that's an unfortunate part of that news, right? But the stock has seen some positive growth due to that news and what have you. So that tends to be very, very favorable. Unfortunately, economic downturns can also affect this sector. I mean, if government is going to change its infrastructural spending, it's probably going to affect the sector. There's also the impact of currency fluctuation on raw material cost. I mean, Dangote Cement and I think Lafarge, they've seen an increase in their foreign exchange expenses due to the naira devaluation, and that has impacted their operations. Right, I think Lafarge is the only company that has sort of managed to skate through the foreign exchange situation, and they've been able to even minimize their debts. Right, their debts on their balance sheets. So they basically optimize themselves to um, capture most of the growth in the market moving forward. Fortunately, they are being acquired, so that's one of the one of the good bad situations that you see on the market. And acquisitions like that can tend to lead to positive increase in stock prices, but then it means that the company might also delist from the market, and that just reduces the number of companies that you can invest in the market. So yeah, that's it about the
Yeah,
industrial
but
sector.
Yeah, but I think it's a bittersweet situation for
Yeah.
Wapco Lafarge because uh, for people who are already investors in this company as minority shareholders, they know despite the fact that this company is going to be delisted at the end of the day, they're going to get a premium for being a part owner, for being minority shareholder. So at least you can just ride the cost while it lasts. So it's bittersweet, anyways. Nobody wants them to leave because I think the reason why I don't want them to leave is because this company, when they pay dividends, they don't they the federal government takes 10% out of every dividend that is paid to all the investors in Nigeria. But this is the only company that says no, we're going to pay the federal government that 10% and we'll just give you your dividends in full. If we're paying you 1 naira per share, we'll give you the 1 naira per share. There's no need to remove the 10 kobo and pay the federal government. We're going to pay the federal government ourselves. And that is something that I love about them. And I've owned this stock since 2013 for a very long time. And so I know what I'm saying. It's a very good stock and it's good. Yeah. So it's a bittersweet situation, anyways. Moving on to the next sector that we want to look at, that would be the oil and gas. The oil and gas sector is one of Nigeria's most influential sector due to the country's dependence on oil export for government's revenue and foreign exchange earnings. If you ask anybody, do you know the country called Nigeria? I think the first thing they're going to tell you, yeah, is an oil producing country. That's what Nigeria is known for. And this is one of our major source of foreign exchange because we export this oil and that's what gives us our foreign exchange. Unfortunately, we export the crude oil abroad and we bring the refined product back, which is something we are trying to overcome with Dangote refinery that is alive now. Is it alive now?
Yes, it's commissioned and it's producing oil right now.
Okay. Please talk to them so that they can come and list that company on the stock
I
market.
think it's one
We
of their
need
plans. I think
we
they
need
plan
more
on the
depth.
Yeah, I think their
Yeah,
plan
we
is still
need
on the
depth.
market. Hopefully next year. Hopefully we see them next year.
Okay, that would be great. We're looking forward to that. So the oil and gas sector is a very popular sector in Nigeria. This sector includes companies that are engaged in oil exploration, production, and distribution. All the major players that are here, both the companies that service this sector, they are still listed on the stock market. You have companies like Unice, you have companies like Caverton, still listing, and we have great companies like Arade Holding, Seplat Petroleum Development Company, and you have this other company that we usually refer to as Oando. And I actually learned that the name is O and O, so
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah, that's another company there. We also have Total Energies, Nigeria PLC, and then we have Eternal Oil as well. Is another one. Cone Oil. Cone Oil has been on a very bullish run this year. I think the year to date, Cone Oil has done 361% capital return in terms of appreciation. Even Orlando has done 535% capital appreciation. You can see the oil and gas sector, the companies, they're on fire. They're really doing very well for investors. So the performance of the oil and gas sector is driven by both local and international factors, such as global oil prices. You have OPEC that usually peg the price of oil. Sometimes they tell the OPEC producing countries the amount to produce. Those affect the price of gases. And those countries that are also engaged in wars and other conflicts that produces oil too can also affect the global price of oil. And in terms of local factor that could influence this sector, include bunkering, issues like vandalization. Those are factors that could also affect it. Why the oil and gas sector offers a potential for high returns during periods of rising oil prices, it also comes with high risk, particularly due to Nigeria's economic dependence on oil and the environmental and regulatory challenges associated with oil production. The next sector we want to look at will be the health sector.
Yeah, so under the healthcare sector, we have basically pharmaceutical companies and companies that are into healthcare services. You get companies like Me and Baker. We also have Fitsin, and I think Mikio also fits into that. Yeah, I think they came in the
Yeah.
market last year. They've been in the market for I think almost over a year now. Basically, we all know what healthcare is. I mean, unfortunately, one of the problems with humans right now is that we definitely need healthcare. We get sick and then we need drugs, we need hospitals, and these are the companies that are basically providing those services. And when you consider the impact of COVID-19, right, it sort of highlighted the need for robust healthcare to increase local production of pharmaceuticals. Basically, the healthcare service as a whole is very, very important for the smooth running of any economy because I mean you can imagine what happens when the COVID-19 pandemic hit and there was a lot of lockdowns and all of that. So the healthcare sector is a very high growth sector. I know most of the companies in that sector they fit into that category of high growth because they tend to focus more on investing in themselves, and then they tend to have this fantastic growth in revenues. I know companies like Fitson and May and Baker have shown that growth. I think Mikio also has shown that growth, that they can actually deliver double digit growth. Unfortunately, we also know that most of the drugs that are being manufactured, the raw materials needed for these drugs are usually imported. So they've been exposed to a lot of foreign exchange fluctuations that has affected their business. But I think we've seen a lot of them quickly move to improve their operations, basically cut down cost. And we have even seen a lot of government initiatives to improve the healthcare and boost local production of pharmaceutical products. We are seeing all of these positive changes, and we know that this is going to be a net positive for the healthcare sector. I think it's just a plus for a lot of companies that are operating within this sector. And I think if you do your due diligence and you do your research, you're likely to find some very, very good companies to invest in within this sector. Right, it's a very good opportunity for investors to capture growth, and I know some of these companies also pay dividends. But I think growth is where most of these companies tend to shine a lot. But like we've also said, these companies tend to invest a lot in research and development. They tend to invest a lot in infrastructure, in capital expenses, right? And so their exposure to foreign exchange fluctuations can be a net negative, right? And also the regulatory environment can also be an issue. So investors should look at those factors as the risk factors that they should factor into their research when they are approaching the sector.
Okay. All right. The next sector is information and communication technology sector, ICT. This sector is one of the fastest growing sector on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and is driven by Nigeria's increasing digitalization demand for telecommunications, internet services, and fintech solutions. The major players here include MTN Nigeria. Unfortunately, they are not doing well in terms of earning capability and profitability. And we also have Airtel Africa and other telecommunications and technology companies. We have companies like Intransact as well. And this sector also has gained prominence due to the rapid adoption of mobile technology, internet penetration, and digital banking, especially in Nigeria, which is a country where traditionally the banking services are not fully accessible to all, especially people that are in the rural areas. The ICT sector is also uh, fueled by Nigeria's large and youthful population, rising smartphone usage, and expanding internet connectivity. Digital transformation in sectors such as banking, retail, and education further boost demand for ICT services. This sector is less vulnerable to economic downturns than other sectors, as telecommunication and internet services are seen as essential. However, it is influenced by regulatory policies such as taxes on telecommunication services and capital intensive requirements for infrastructure development. For investors, I think this ICT sector provides access to growth in Nigeria's digital economy, though regulatory challenges and technological advancement poses potential risk. All right, Aye, the next sector.
Okay. Another sector that is worth considering in the Nigerian stock market is the financial services sector. And I know you're probably going to be thinking, oh, the banks are also involved here. No. So when we talk about financial services, we are just excluding the bank because these are companies that are in the financial service sector, but they are providing alternate financial services other than banking. Basically talking about your asset management firms, your insurance companies. I think some banks even fit into this category. I know Stanbic has insurance business and asset management business, but then you also have other companies like United Capital. They don't have a core banking business, but they are also into asset management and providing of other financial services. We also have insurance companies like ICO, AXA, Mansard, and they also have custodians. They also have their insurance business as well as other financial services that they also offer. And these companies, they basically support the capital markets, they provide insurance coverage and investment growth in Nigeria. And what we've seen with this sector over the years is that we've seen increasing awareness for insurance business and asset management, and this has led to a lot of adoption of financial products by the growing middle class we see in Nigeria, right? Fortunately, we know this middle class is being threatened because of the economy right now. That's one negative side about this sector. They are exposed to economic cycles, right? And regulatory changes in the economy. I mean, when you think about the services these companies provide, asset management, insurance, obviously, given the current state of the economy, these services would be impacted by them. But we've also seen this sector to show immense growth. I know some of the best performing companies in the Nigerian market currently are even in the insurance company. I think the foreign exchange market has favored some insurance companies because of foreign exchange gains that they've made. And for asset management companies, we've seen some companies increase their asset under management and rake in good fees and commission income, especially this period of bank recapitalization, where these companies are providing basically investment banking services for some of these companies with respect to the recapitalization exercise. It has been a sort of mixed bag for companies. So this is something that is worth considering that, yeah, regulation, the volatility of the economy, and the awareness of these products is a factor that can negatively affect these companies. However, the positive side of this is that as these companies manage and navigate these various issues, they tend to show a lot of growth. What we've seen with companies that fit into this category is that they tend to have good growth and also very good dividend yields. I know some of the companies here, their dividend yield might not be as high as the banks, but they tend to complement this with very decent growth rates, right? So that's the benefit of this particular sector in the NGX.
Okay. The last sector we want to look at now is the agricultural sector. This is the sector that keeps this country going. This sector helps to ensure that the country is well fed and everybody is happy. Bob Marley once said that a hungry man is an angry man. So if you don't want Nigerians to be angry, you make sure this sector is the sector that works very well. And that's why government has a lot of incentives in terms of this sector. There are a lot of policies that are very uh, goal oriented and well driven towards this sector to make sure this sector is adequately cared for. Agricultural sector uh, is a very small sector when you compare it to the other sectors in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but it is a very critical sector because it plays a critical part in the economy of the country because the country rely on the agricultural sector for food security and employment. Companies that are listed under the agricultural sector include Presco PLC, Ella Lakes, we have Okomu Oil Palm Company and Livestock, and some other companies like Flour Mills of Nigeria has a subsector dedicated to the agricultural sector. This sector they are also involved in agro processing and palm oil production. The sector benefits from government policies aimed at achieving food sufficiency and promoting export as well as reducing reliance on food imports. This sector has uh, export activities, especially the oil palm produce that is commonly referred to as CPO, crude palm oil. They export it for processing and for other finished goods. They also help the country to earn some foreign exchange. Agricultural sector is a highly sensitive sector because in terms of agriculture is sensitive to weather. And right now, you know what the world is undergoing. We're going through global warming. It's affecting food production. It's affecting other areas of human activities. Like you have the regular clashes, which is not supposed to be between the cattle herders as well as the farmers, because there is little space for farming as well as for cattle herding and all that. There's a lot of clashes going on, which could threaten food security in the country. This sector also experiences some other challenges like pest control and agricultural policies, infrastructure limitation in the sense that we don't have good roads in Nigeria. The produce from these sectors, they are perishable goods. The time it takes for them to be transported from the rural areas to the city where most people need them, it takes a lot of time. In conclusion, the Nigerian Stock Exchange features a diverse array of sectors, each representing distinct aspects of the Nigerian economy and offering unique opportunities and risk for investors. For the resilient banking and consumer goods sector be to the rapidly growing ICT and the essential agricultural sector, the Nigerian Stock Exchange reflects Nigeria's economic landscape and evolving industrial trends. While the performance of each sector is shaped by specific economic, regulatory, and global factors, together these sectors provide investors with tools to diversify their portfolios and to benefit from Nigeria's long term growth potential. However, as an investor, you must carefully consider your investment strategy. You must carefully do your own due diligence, do your own research before you invest in any of these sectors. Why it is very important you have exposure to each of these sectors for diversification purposes. It is also good you do a thorough homework so that you know what you are investing in. It's very vital. You have to do that because it's your money at the end of the day. You are the investor. You are the one that is going to reap the reward of your investment. If you're not careful, you're going to reap the failure of your investment. So that's all we have for you today. Are there any final word before we call it a day?
Yeah, so as always, it's very important to remember that you have to be flexible and very, very fluid. Like Moody has said, these are different sectors. They all have different ups and downs. They all have different advantages and disadvantages. And even within these sectors, not all companies will follow the same pattern. You will tend to see growth in some companies, whereas the overall industry tends to be more stable. Some companies tend to have very high dividend yields, even though their overall sector might be low dividend yields. Most of the stocks will have low dividend yield. So it's very, very important to keep this in mind that um, you have to focus on the little details that make some companies very, very peculiar. So while approaching each sector, also look at each company as a standalone, so that you can approach it with the overall sector mindset, but then also try and open up to the possibility that this company might be slightly different from its industry, right? So that can just help you capture some companies at very, very important times, very, very cheap prices, when they still have a lot of growth, and they probably still have very, very high dividend yields, right? It's very, very good for you to always keep that in mind, right? The overall importance of categorizing companies into these different sectors is just so that you can help you understand how to diversify and strategize your portfolio. So yeah,
Okay. Thank you. Until we meet again, thank you for listening to this episode.
thank you
Bye
everyone.
for now.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Favorite podcast that brings insight to the Nigerian stock market. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To get more episodes like this, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, as well as on our website. All this information is available in the show note below this episode. Until we bring you another episode your way next week. Bye for now. TNI podcast is executive produced by Moody. This episode was edited by Rona at Rock Quarry Village Studio.